did not, if you've noticed, attend much of the court proceedings in this case. He represents the best interest of the children. Why was he not here? He was here at the beginning, and after I crossed him, you hadn't seen him again. Why did he not stay? If he represented the best interest of the children, he didn't know what evidence was going to be produced here at trial. He could have changed his mind, but he didn't want his mind changed. Even more importantly, Your Honor, Mr. Bloom, the guardian ad litem, did not attend the second half of Mr. Raymond's or Miss Raymond's deposition. Why not? He had no idea what questions I was going to ask Mr. Raymond under oath. He had no idea, Your Honor, what questions Mr. Mayer was going to ask Mr. Raymond under oath. He didn't attend the deposition. Why? Because he already bought those tickets and backstage passes to Mr. Raymond's performance. Your Honor, he did not order Mr. Raymond, I'm sorry, let me withdraw that. He did not ask this court to order Mr. Raymond to take a drug test. Now, the issue of a drug test, it's important. You saw lifestyle pictures of what Mr. Raymond's career is involved. That's where he wants to take the children with him on tour. You saw pictures of partying. You saw pictures with alcohol. There's testimony regarding Mr. Raymond's alleged drug use, but Mr. Raymond refused to take the drug test. Miss Raymond took a drug test. No problem. Mr. Raymond refused to take one, and the guardian ad litem, for whatever reason, chose that that issue wasn't important. Why not? How could it not be important to whether or not the person whom you are proposing to be physical custodian, whether or not they operate their parental, or conduct their parental obligations under the influence of drugs? Why is that not important? It's because Mr. Bloom bought tickets and passes to Mr. Raymond's performance. What other evidence did Mr. Raymond present? Your Honor, every other witness up there was a witness that showed that he exercises control over Miss Raymond. Her nannies. None of his past nannies, anybody, present nanny, anyone. It was her nannies. Now, how did he get their information? Well, he had control of it. She didn't have any information about his nannies. No phone number, no timesheets. Another issue. The guardian ad litem did not ask this court to force him to turn over timesheets. He acknowledged that they were important because he used it against Miss Raymond, seeing exactly every minute in which a nanny was there. And in order for her to have her child care help, because Mr. Raymond's paying for it, in order for her to have it, her nannies had to submit timesheets or they wouldn't be paid, and they quit. You heard it from Portia Williams. They quit. They couldn't go 4 weeks without being paid. He wasn't going to pay them unless they had timesheets, and that was for this case. Well, the guardian ad litem ignored that Mr. Raymond didn't provide that information despite him asking for it. No problem to him. The guardian ad litem did not interview Mr. Raymond's past nannies. Now, okay, you didn't get timesheets, though you requested them. He did not even interview Mr. Raymond's past nannies, only his current nanny, whom you have not heard from, not a word. But with regard to Miss Raymond, because Mr. Raymond had all the information, he interviewed 3 of her former nannies. 3 of her former nannies. And those nannies came in here and they testified. Now, what did they testify to? They'd only been there 3 or 4 months. Issues with payment. What exactly did they testify to? They testified about incidents, limited incidents, of parenting issues that came up during the pendency of this very stressful case over a very short couple of months period, and being under the influence of Mr. Raymond. How is it that her nanny, who she is talking to, turns around and is sitting up there in the stand testifying about how she's been over Mr. Raymond's house and played with his kids? That was Jacqueline Martin, Your Honor. The law requires the court to also look at the demeanor of the witnesses. You remember Jacqueline Martin, she came in this courtroom with one whole shoulder out and a tight black skirt, and she testified there. That was, to me, just the appearance of how she would come to this court was a little bit disturbing, but even more disturbing was her testimony about her interactions with Mr. Raymond. That's Miss Raymond's nanny. How does that happen? It happens because Mr. Raymond has control, and he has the information. That information he's fed to this court, he's fed to the guardian ad litem, but he's kept all of his information. He's refused to turn it over. He's been in control of all the information coming into this court. Jacqueline Martin bought tickets, backstage passes. Katie Benson, been there a couple of months. What did she testify about? She testified about not being paid. She testified about Miss Raymond. During the pendency of this case, Your Honor, that's the most important thing. These witnesses that Mr. Raymond had come in here and testify were all witnesses that came into Miss Raymond's life during the pendency of this very stressful case. What she testified to, Miss Raymond, busy, stressed. What? She was there. She's here in Georgia. She was at the house. She cooked. What do you want from her? It's nitpicking. It's microscope. It's unbelievable that we've been here for 11 days, and that's what Mr. Raymond's show is about. It's about nothing. Because Miss Raymond, no matter what Katie Benson, no matter what Jacqueline Martin, no matter what the guardian ad litem, no matter what the witnesses that Mr. Raymond presented, no matter what they say, she didn't cook 5 meals a week. She only cooked 2. She's bossy. No matter what they say, she is here. She is here. He's not. And she is not required to fight against any fantasy village for her children. Linda Brock White. You know, I'm sure, Your Honor, that you had the occasion where you have someone in the neighborhood, some woman in the neighborhood is just plain cuckoo. That's Linda Brock White. You look at her demeanor. She came in this courtroom and she testified on direct. I believe one of the last questions Mr. Mayu asked her was, now you haven't had any argument or anything with Miss Raymond since the vacation that would cause you to come in here, have you? No, I have not, is what she responded. My first question to her was, didn't you have an argument 2 or 3 days after you got there on vacation and left? Left from another country, packed your bags, and left and came back because you were so mad at Miss Raymond? And she said yes. The first question on cross. She's a liar. She's a liar. What's her demeanor? She said she wasn't angry at Miss Raymond. Not only did she clearly lie about not having an argument, that was so bad that she left the country and came back here. But she, Your Honor, was clenching her teeth, and she showed pure venom against Miss Raymond. Now, I don't know what happened, but how someone could come here. She testified about being at the hospital with Miss Raymond when her son Kyle was in the hospital. Her problem with Miss Raymond was she doesn't spend time with her children, is what she said. She's bossy. She doesn't talk, the way she talks to people. Now, I've never had a child pass, but I can imagine that being at the hospital, that was a very stressful time. And Miss Brock White's comment about the way Miss Raymond talked to people at the hospital while her son was on life support. I find it very hard that anybody would make a judgment about that. But I think the most telling thing, Your Honor, was when Miss Brock White testified that they took this vacation for the kids, the boys, to try to give them some type of a reprieve, and to try to get away after this happened, in this case. When Miss Brock White testified that Miss Raymond did not have the right to grieve from burying her son 6 days earlier, cuckoo. It's the only way I can describe it. Cuckoo. What, Your Honor, did Mr. Raymond show? His whole time was spent in an attempt to show that Miss Raymond was not a good parent. He wasn't successful.